All of these people believed that there would be laws and conventions that would help the community take care of the poor, the elderly, the sick, and the imprisoned. I want to caution or remind folks that leaving issues up to society, and particularly to the elected government, hasn't always been the best course of action. Sometimes, if you didn't know it, the American government sometimes gets it wrong. Like with Native Americans, or African Americans, or Japanese Americans, or with the Salem witch trials, the Bonus Army, the eugenics movement, the McCarthy era, LGBT folks who lived through all of that anyway, Gitmo, Abu Ghraib, reproductive rights. And we had a president from 1981. When are you guys born? Well, I'm going to tell you, we had a president about when I was a little older than you, from 1981 to 1989, who co-opted the words of dear Governor Winthrop calling for a shining city on a hill as part of his campaign rhetoric. This president kind of got it wrong. On the homeless issue, he had much the same reasoning that I did when I was 10. He said famously, "You can't help those who simply will not be helped. One problem that we've had, even in the best of times, is people who are sleeping on the grates. The homeless who are homeless, you might say, by choice." This president also stood stock, still, silent, while thousands of gay men were dying of AIDS in America. A challenger to this president said, maybe, Mr. President, if you visited some other places, maybe if you went to Appalachia, where people still lived in sheds, if you stopped at a shelter in Chicago and spoke to the homeless, maybe, Mr. President, if you asked a woman who was denied the help she needed to feed her children because you said we needed the money for a tax break for a millionaire or for a missile we couldn't afford to use. Unfortunately, the government is the one system that is uniquely poised to resolve this problem. It can't, or it won't, or it hasn't, although I have to say it's getting a little bit better. The issues of poverty and hunger are as old as dirt. It's not enough to simply enact new laws, because for every new law, about 10 laws that are pointed against homeless people and poverty-stricken people need to be undone in order for this to work. I won't continue to dump all over the government here, and I acknowledge that the church and society have not always acted as a model of Christian charity. The name itself implies that only Christians need apply. Not only laws, but attitudes need to change. In biblical times, it was a sin not to extend hospitality to strangers, not to feed the poor, not to take care of the elderly and the infirm. There's a Bible verse that undergirds this concept from Deuteronomy. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Say it. Justice, justice you shall pursue. There's a danger here that I've fallen prey to before. I was just reminded about that this week. Too often we talk about the homeless as poster children for a disease or as walking ad men. In God's economy, all people are free and equal and treated with respect. So yes, we need to help, but we need to go into it with our eyes and ears and hearts open, ready to receive and to give. There's a basic human responsibility to reach out to others. Giving of your time and money is a statement that you'll do what you can to help. Some of this help may be simply to hear the voices of those in need. And we do this. I know Hope Central Church gives 10% of its pledges to support mission projects and organizations that do work that the church itself cannot do. They do hands-on mission work at a JP Recovery Center, local nursing homes. They occupy Jamaica Plain. I know that Stoughton donates to the Stoughton Food Pantry, the Heifer Project, Mainspring House, and best of all, they educate. They take part in the crop walk. They take part in the 30-hour famine. They come here to learn, and hopefully they'll return to teach. I had a professor in seminary, I guess I have a professor in seminary, who summed up the whole thing for me. He said, in order to get to heaven, you need a note from the poor. As part of my work as the student minister here, I've been hosting this series of events with City Mission Society, which educates youth from places like Stoughton and Canton and Dover and Tewksbury and Barnstable, and yes, in a particularly gratifying twist of fate, Saxonville. About the challenges of homelessness and what they, as individuals, as groups, as churches, as in towns, as future voters and legislators can do to alleviate some of the woes and to provide some sustenance and comfort to those in need. It may be in material goods, it may be in listening to stories, it may be writing a check, it may be in reminding, nay, bullying our legislators to do all that they can, or at least more than they're doing. I am grateful for and hopeful about and humbled by this work. It just takes commitment, the presence of God, a little education, and a few allies. Are you with me? Can we do more? Are you with me? Can we do more? Yes. So get on board. Get on board. Get on board. Get on board. Amen.